Hello everybody, this is the iFan channel here. Over here is Vilnius. I'll be staying at Vilnius for 2 nights and I'll be going around Vilnius for 1 day. And here is a McDonald's. Now I'm going to eat some small meal before going to the hotel, so I'll see you guys when I get my meal. Okay guys, here's my meal. As you guys can see, the large fries, small fries from the Happy Meal. This water is from the Happy Meal as well. The cheeseburger is from the Happy Meal. A McRoyale, as well as a Sprite, and you can see a toy over here. Yes, I'm not even joking. So what I'm just gonna eat, and I paid 10 euros for this. After eating dinner, I decided to return to my hotel room over here. As you guys can see, quite a soft bed. Let me show you guys. Really soft, and you have a sofa as well. And unfortunately, there's no AC, but in reality, this is a colder environment, so there's no need for an AC. But you can see a kitchen over here, as well as a restroom. Let me show you guys. Yes, this is an Airbnb, and yeah, the restroom. And guess how much I paid for this hotel? $90 for 2 nights, $45 a night. The reason for this is because of the tourist fee in Vilnius, as well as the €2 pillow fee. So €8 in fees altogether for me. Good morning guys, it is a sunny day, and why not, I'm just going to eat some McDonald's. Okay guys, I bought this for about €10.50, and over here is a filet of fish Big Mac and 2 large fries, as well as 2 drinks. So why not, I'm just gonna eat, and then I'm gonna drink the rest soon. I've just finished eating, and why not let me tell you guys a story about Vilnius. Vilnius was first mentioned sometime around 1323 and was granted city rights in 1387. And here's some more fun facts about Vilnius. Vilnius used to be part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, but then after World War I it was ceded to Poland, and then in 1941 it was ceded into the Soviet Union after being occupied by the Nazis for some time. And it remained in the Soviet sphere until about 1990, when the Baltic states gained independence, and therefore all 3 Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, joined the EU, as well as the Schengen area and Eurozone as a current. But in Polish this city is called Vilno. Now the very first attraction I'm going to visit is the Church of St. Peter and Paul, and this is a Catholic church in Vilnius, and is the centerpiece of a former monastery complex of the Canons Regular of the Lateran. Inside you'll find 2,000 stucco features by Giovanni Pietro-Petti in ornamentation by Giovanni Maria Galli. It was built between 1688 and 1701 in a Baroque style, so why not, I'll just go in to show you guys. I just exited the church, and I do believe it is one of the most beautiful churches in all of Europe, just based on the interior with all the intricate attention to detail, as well as ornate stuccos. I've just finished my tour at the Church of St. Peter and Paul, and now I'm currently at the Hills Park, where there's a crooked castle, as well as the 3 Crosses monument over here. As you guys can see, now this monument was built in 1989, and why not, I'm just going to climb up here. The legend does denote that you have to climb up a set of stairs, so here is a set of stairs. After several dozen debilitating steps, I finally arrived at the middle of the hill. Not even yet at the 3 Crosses monument, but over here depicts some of the Grand Dukes of Lithuania. And here is another Vytautas. Now he did fail an attack which forced him to flee to the Teutonic Order. And over here is the crooked castle, and afterwards I'm going to go to the upper castle and the lower castle over here. Over there is the 3 Crosses monument, and before 1390 there used to be a castle called the Crooked Castle, but then with the siege in 1390 that castle is now gone, and the 3 Crosses monument replaced the castle over here. Now during the Tsardom of Russia. The castle hills would later bear the name of the Hill of Three Crosses, but in 1950, unfortunately, the Three Crosses were blown up by Soviet authorities, and it was not until 1989 when this was restored to its original glory over here. I finally reached the summit over here, and over here is the Three Crosses monument. And if you were to see the view of Vilnius, is absolutely stunning from up here. Let me show you guys. Yeah, and I do believe somewhere around there is the castle, and over there is the Gediminas Tower, as you guys can see. But I'm so paranoid I might fall. Yeah, but over here it is the view of Vilnius, and here is a legend. Yes, you could also see the Vilnius town hall as well, somewhere around here. And of course up there are the Three Crosses, and you can see a Latin inscription over here. After a few hundred debilitating steps, I finally got down to ground level, and over here is the Gediminas Castle Tower. And let me tell you guys what it is all about once you get up there. Now the Gediminas Castle Tower is the only remaining building on the upper castle. It is on the top of Gediminas Hill over here, and as you guys can see, you could see some really nice views of the central business district as well as the old town if you want to go there. Now the whole tower was first built somewhere around the 13th century by Gediminas, a Grand Duke of Lithuania at the time, but it was finished in 1409 by Vytautas, who was the successor to Gediminas. As you guys can see, this is what the castle tower looks like. Now this is built in the brick Gothic style, and it was restored in 1933. Over here is the skyline of the old town, and it is absolutely impressive from up here. Now you could see several cathedrals as well as palaces, as well as the Three Crosses monument. So why not? I'm thinking of going in, but I'm not sure if I could go into the Gediminas Castle Tower or not. I'm currently in the museum now, and over here are the cannonballs of bombards, and you could also find some armor as well. And fun fact, Lithuania was the last pagan country in Europe having only adopted Catholicism during like the 13th and 14th centuries. I'm now on the second floor of the castle tower, and over here is an iron wolf, and you could see several statues depicting knights over here, as you guys can see, and you could also find out several depictions of weapons. Over here are artifacts related to crossbow and crossbow arrows. Over here are some artifacts of a horseman. Over here swords. Over here axes. Over here was a map of Europe several hundred years ago, and as you guys can see, now Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania will be united in one country. And over here is a map by an Italian cartographer of Lithuania. And over here was a depiction of the castle complex, and over there is where the former crooked castle is, and over here will be what the upper castle looked like. And this building is kind of gone already, and as you guys can see, this is the lower castle complex, aka Cathedral Hill. And yeah, that is where the fragments of the castle would be. Now the whole Gediminas Tower survived intact. Over here will be more swords. If you were to go up one more flight of stairs, you will find this, which is an interactive gallery of the city of Vilnius, and specifically the Gediminas Castle Tower. Now over here is the timeline of images. One more flight of stairs would lead you to this, which talks about the 1863 and 1864 uprising against Russia. As you guys all know, like the Baltic states, as well as part of Poland, was swallowed into the Russian Empire, and as many as 150,000 soldiers fought, and 15,000 rebels fought, with about 6,000 rebels being killed. And as you guys all know, many of the dissidents as well as freedom fighters were buried somewhere around the Gediminas Castle Tower. In 1865, about 22,000 people were sentenced to death, punished with penal labor, sent to mines, exiled to distant regions of Russia. forcibly taken to the army or police custody. And just several years ago, there was archaeological research which found 20 male skeletons around Gediminas Hill. And in 2019, a state funeral was organized for the burial of the remains of the commanders and participants of the uprising in the chapel of the old Razo cemetery. Now, Lithuania was the first Soviet republic to declare independence in 1990, followed by Latvia and Estonia. And later, the rest of the Soviet Union disintegrated in 1991. I'm now finally at the very top of the Gediminas Tower. And as you guys can see, over there is the Vilnius Cathedral. And over there is the palace of the Grand Dukes of Lithuania. As you guys can see, it is quite scenic from up here. Now you could also see the Three Crosses monuments, as well as the Church of St. Peter and Paul over there. And yeah, it is absolutely scenic from up here. And this over here is Gediminas Hill. And you could also find this, which is, you believe, are the remains of the castle. And over there is the Vilnius Central Business District. So why not, I'm just going to go down, and over there is the Vilnius TV Tower. I'm now in the lower castle, and why not, I'm just going to go to the palace of the Grand Dukes. Now over there is the funicular, and you could see the whole tower over there. I've just arrived at the Vilnius Castle complexes, and over here it does discuss some information such as the fact the Vilnius Castle was first mentioned by the Grand Duke Gediminas in 1323, and that the complex consists of 3 different castles. The Crooked Castle over there, as well as the Upper and Lower Castle, which is where we're at. And one thing was that those castles used to be wooden, but then sometime around the 14th and 15th century, they became brick. Sometime around the 1270s to 1280s, the first brick buildings started being constructed in Vilnius on the western foothills of Castle Hill. And as you guys can see, those are some of the brick. And I do believe the remains of an older castle. Over here is an equestrian sculpture of the Grand Duke of Lithuania, Gediminas. And he was the founder of Vilnius, as we all know. And he helped Lithuania become the most powerful state in Eastern Europe. And yeah, those were the remains of a medieval castle. Sometime around 1377, the Teutonic Order has tried to invade Vilnius, but unsuccessfully. And in 1390, the Crooked Castle was destroyed. And because Vytautas could not invade Vilnius successfully, he was being exiled to the Teutonic Order. Over here was several military equipment, as you guys can see, even gloves as well. And you could even see more, such as body armor. Now, even though the Grand Duchy of Lithuania rose to prominence during the 14th centuries, unfortunately there were several invasions against it by the Muscovites, aka the Grand Duchy of Moscow, as well as several others, with Vilnius seeing a downfall sometime around the 16th century. 1655 was a tragic year for the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth because of an internal war against the Cossacks, as well as the attacks by the Muscovites, as well as the Swedes. However, the Muscovites surrendered 6 years later, and this guy, Hetman Michał Kazimierz Pak, actually liberated Vilnius. Over here was some of the weapons and swords used during the 17th century. Over here was just a normal 14th century warrior, but over here is the noble warrior chief. As you guys can see, their clothing articles are more complex. And of course over here, military armor from the 17th century. Now over here are 17th century guns and crossbows. As you guys can see, yeah, quite basic, but in reality guns were a newer concept during the 17th century. Now if you can see, over there is where the North Gate Tower used to stand, and over here was where the sewers were. As you guys can see, this is about 2 meters tall and 1.8 to 1.9 meters wide, so quite wide. And plus it is about 26 meters long, and this sewer is meant to direct the wastewater from the palace into a canal outside the lower castle's defensive wall. Now over here is another brick sewage canal, and now this canal is approximately 40 meters long, and it is the oldest brick engineering structure of its kind in all of Lithuania. Now over here is a mini exhibition depicting the art collection of the Bank of Lithuania, and even though some of this are from the early 20th century, like this for example, from 1926, most come from the mid to late 90s, and some like this come from the early 2000s. Now this painting came from 2005. Now, just like every other royal family in Europe, classical music was heavily popular amongst the Grand Dukes. In fact, Oswald von Falkenstein visited the Teutonic Order as well as the Grand Duchy at least several times. And over here was a music manuscript from the 15th century. And even later, Ladislaus Vasa has visited Monteverdi several times. And over here will be a typical 17th century music transcript. And fun fact, even through the 17th and 18th centuries, Lithuanian magnates maintained close ties with music creators in various countries across Europe, including Johann Sebastian Bach, Antonio Vivaldi, as well as several others. And fun fact, the opera Everardo II, Re de Lithuania, was written to mark the birthday of the King of Portugal, Peter III, in 1782. And it was performed here at the National Palace of Queluz, near Lisbon, Portugal. And the music tradition continued to this day. Now let me tell you guys about the new wings of the Renaissance Palace. Now construction began in the mid-16th century, first off with the northwest wing between 1552 and 1554. And the kitchen was abandoned after the wars that ravaged the palace in the middle of the 17th century, and much of that wing was demolished sometime around 1800. And over here were the remains of the palace kitchen. Now I'm in tour Route 4, and over here it talks about the historic iconography of the Vilnius castles, from its construction to its demise and then demolition, and of course non-existence and memories and attempts at reconstruction. Over here is a fragment of a map of the world with the view of Vilnius from the mid-14th century. And over here is a drawing of the palace of the Grand Dukes of Lithuania in the Vilnius lower castle, and of course the upper castle from 1545. Now over here is the panorama over Vilnius in 1600. And over here was the panorama of the Vilnius castle as late as 1800. Over here is a replica of the lower and upper castle ensemble. And over here were etchings of the castle complex in 1940. Over here was the plan of the Vilnius defense fortifications in 1650. And over here is the model for the Palace of the Grand Dukes. Now up there is the event hall, and the reason why I'm not going to tours 1 and 2 is because they will be time consuming, and plus I'll miss the Vilnius center because I only have a day in Vilnius, and I woke up late because I was slightly sick. I just exited the Palace of the Grand Dukes, and I do believe it is a better idea to buy the $12 ticket that takes you through 4 different tours instead of have 2 different tours for €4. And over here is a flag of Lithuania and Ukraine, and as you guys know, all 3 Baltic states don't really support Russia at all. In fact, they side with Ukraine just because they were occupied by Soviet Russia for much of the 20th century. And of course over here are the tours: the museum, exhibition center, weaponry, everyday life and music, reconstructed historical interiors, and history, archaeology and architecture. Unfortunately, I cannot go to the first 2 tours as they'll be too time consuming. I just exited the palace complex altogether, and over there is the monument to Duke Gediminas, who was the founder of Vilnius. And over there is the whole Vilnius cathedral, as you guys can see, and over there is the cathedral square. I just exited the Vilnius Cathedral, and despite the fact, in my opinion, it is not as ornate as the Church of St. Peter and Paul. In fact, this is the main cathedral in the country. I'm not even joking. And behind it is the palace of the Grand Dukes of Lithuania. And that palace was originally constructed in the 15th century after the 1419 Great Fire in a Renaissance style for the ruler of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the future kings of Poland. It evolved over the 4 centuries, and it was formerly a political, administrative and cultural center of the Commonwealth. And it was destroyed in 1801 by the Russian Empire. Archaeological excavation started in the 1990s, and reconstruction of the Palace of the Grand Duke started in 2002, and it finished only 7 years ago. I'm not even joking. As for the Vilnius Cathedral, it is the main Catholic cathedral of the whole country, and it is dedicated to Saints Stanislaus and Ladislaus. It was consecrated in 1783, and it is built in a neoclassical style, as you guys can see. And the construction only took 4 years. There was a former church in the site back in 1251, and the Baltic pagan god Pakunas used to be worshipped here. In 1387, when Lithuania converted to Christianity, construction began on a second Gothic cathedral with 5 chapels. Over here is the bell tower, and this whole vastness over here is Cathedral Square. Now that is the 5 o'clock bell. Over here is the full look of the cathedral and bell tower, and behind it is the palace of the Grand Dukes. Now over here is the clear facade of the exterior of the palace of the Grand Dukes, the new reconstruction. If you were to walk 10 more minutes, you would find the Bernardine Garden, and it is a public park located on the left bank of the Vilnius River between the Gediminas Tower and the Bernardine Monastery, and it covers 9 hectares. There is a botanic exposition inside, and it hosted an amateur chess championship of Ostap Bender, as well as other festivals. Before the 14th century, this used to be a pagan St. Oaks wood, but the oaks were cut down after the advent of Christianity, and in 1469 the park was created. In 1864 the Russians closed the Bernardine Garden, and it was recovered 20 years later. And fun fact, this garden was renovated only 12 years ago, the most recent time. Over here is the garden, and up there is the 3 Crosses monument. Over there would be where the musical fountain is, but I do believe it is closed for now. And yes, you can see some covering. And yes, why not? I'm just going to go here so I can get to the St. Anne's Church. And yes, the garden is quite beautiful, just like any other garden. But yeah. But yes, even though the trees have not grown yet, this park will be very nice to walk around, especially during the summer when it is extremely hot, like say around 25 degrees Celsius. But in reality, the Baltics could be quite cold at times, just because we're now like 55 degrees north. And yes, over here are the last few views before we had to say goodbye to this garden. But over there is a playground. Yes, just a rudimentary playground, kind of like what is seen possibly at several of Cambridge's parks. And over there would be a water fountain, I believe so. I just finished my tour of the garden, and why not, I'll go inside the St. Anne's Church and then discuss to you guys about it. You've seen the interior of the church, and here is the exterior facade. Now both the exterior and interior are quite ornate, and let me tell you guys about the St. Anne's Church. Because the St. Anne's Church is on the right bank of the Vilnius River and was constructed between 1495 and 1500 in a flamboyant and Gothic styles. It is currently a UNESCO heritage site, and it replaced a church on this same site built for the Grand Duchess Anna, who was the first spouse of Vytautas the Great, which was burnt down in 1419 due to the Great Fire. And over there is the Adam Mickiewicz statue. I'm not even joking. Not only did his statue exist in Krakow as well as Warsaw, but it also exists here as well in Vilnius. I'm not even joking. And In 1987, there was a protest against Soviet occupation, but it was crushed by the Russian military. Now adjacent to the St. Anne's Church is this, which is the Church of St. Michael the Archangel. Over there is the 6 o'clock bell, and let me tell you guys some fun facts about the Church of St. Michael. I'm now sitting next to the Church of St. Michael the Archangel, and it is a former Catholic church and present-day church heritage museum in Vilnius, very close to the St. Anne's Church, which is over there. And here are some fun facts. It was built in 1594 in the Gothic, Renaissance and Baroque style, so technically eclectic style, and it used to house a church, but now it is a museum. As you guys can see, this is what the Church Heritage Museum looks like, and it was built with the help of 3 architects: an Italian architect Giovanni Battista Giusleni, Zygmuntas Hendelis, and Vaclav Michnievich. And over here is the Catholic Church. Now adjacent to both the St. Anne's and St. Michael's Church is this, which is the Theotokos Cathedral in Vilnius. Now this is a Russian Orthodox church. It was built in the Byzantine style in 1346, and it is 49 meters tall, and it is the episcopal see of the Russian Orthodox Church in Lithuania. I'm not even joking. I'm not sure if I could go in or not, but over here is the Orthodox Church. As you guys can see, yes, this is what the church looks like. Now, even though Russia is fervently hated by the republics of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, you do have to remember that these 3 states were part of the Soviet Union, and therefore Russian migration was very common. And in fact, about 35% of Tallinn, yes, the capital of Estonia, is like ethnic Russian, and 25% of the city of Riga, aka the capital of Latvia, are ethnic Russians. And guess what? 10% of Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania, are ethnic Russians, just because of Russian irredentism. Well, who knows if the Baltic states were really part of the Soviet Union, as they were occupied and technically under Russian occupation until about 1990. As you guys can see, let's say goodbye to this church, and why not? I'm just going to go to the village of Uzumpis. Very close to the Theotokos Cathedral is this, which is the neighborhood of Uzumpis over here. Now, as you guys can see, this is the signage for the Republic of Uzumpis. I'm not even joking. This is a self-proclaimed micronation over here, and Uzumpis is a neighborhood in Vilnius, which meant beyond the river or the other side of the river, and it has been popular with artists for some time. And fun facts, some of the neighborhoods this has been compared to include the Montmartre in Paris and Freetown Christiania in Copenhagen. And in 1997, a self-proclaimed micronation called the Republic of Uzumpis, or Respublika Zarechi, was founded here by artists with its own constitution. This district contains the Bernardine cemetery, and there was a Jewish community here, but they were systematically exterminated by the Nazis. It used to be occupied by the untouchables such as the homeless, prostitutes and squatters, but then the area got gentrified since the independence of Lithuania in 1990. The writer of the constitution was Romas Lileikis, and its Independence Day was on April Fool's Day, believe it or not, which meant yesterday. Now over here is the Vilnia River, and I'm now entering the hippie neighborhood and self-proclaimed micronation. Yes, I'm not even joking. This is a micronation that is about 0.6 square kilometers, so quite small, but nonetheless it is still quite eccentric, to be honest. But yes, this is really just like any neighborhood, except with an extra layer of hip. Kind of like Davis Square, sort of, or Jamaica Plain, but in reality these places are quite similar to the rest of Boston, given the fact that Boston does have a large young professional population. But as you guys can see, this is what the neighborhood looks like. And fun fact, the Republic of Azupis even has its own flag, as well as president and cabinet of ministers. I'm now inside the neighborhood, and this is what the neighborhood looks like, with the Angel of Azupis monument over here, and over there is the One for All. And what's idiosyncratic is, instead of having like one particular cuisine, you have world cuisine. You could choose between Lithuanian dishes, Spanish dishes, Italian dishes, Belgian dishes, American dishes, as well as French dishes, Thai dishes, Norwegian dishes, Japanese dishes, Ukrainian dishes, Cuban dishes, as well as Argentinian dishes. And over here is the Constitution of Azupis, and let me show you guys what the Constitution looks like. Everyone has the right to live by the river Vinelli, and the river Vinelli has the right to flow by everyone. Everyone has the right to hot water, heating in winter, and a tile roof, as well as several others. There are 41 amendments here. And the Constitution is in multiple languages. Yes, I'm not even joking. So if you don't understand English, then there's probably another language for you, Mandarin. However, I was not able to find the Vietnamese language. I just exited the self-proclaimed Republic of Azupis, and over here is the Bastion Hills. Now I'm going to climb up Bastion Hill. I just climbed to the top of Bastion Hill. Over here are just regular buildings, but behind it is the Church of the Ascension, aka the Missionary Church. It is unfortunately temporarily closed, but why not? I'm just going to go down to the Gate of Dawn, and then I'm going to eat dinner. Now over here is the bastion of the Vilnius defense wall. I'm not sure if you could see because my autofocus is kind of bad at this point. Now the reason why the Vilnius walls were built was because of the Muscovite Lithuanian wars, and this thing was built between 1503 and 1522 to guard Vilnius from the Crimean Khanate attacks. I'm on my way to the Gate of Dawn as well as the town hall, and over here seems like a medieval or early Renaissance street in Vilnius. After a few minutes walking, I finally arrived here, which is the Gate of Dawn. Now this is one of the most important Catholic pilgrimage sites in the country as well as in the Baltics. Now over here is the old town facade of the gate, and the Gate of Dawn was first built between 1503 and 1514 as part of the city walls, and it served as one of the 9 gates of the city walls. It was known as the Gediminas Gate, and an image of Blessed Virgin Mary was erected on the gate. The wooden chapel next to the gate was built in 1672, but due to a fire it had to be replaced by a brick chapel which was built in 1711. Unfortunately, the chapel is closed at this time. But over here is a section of the old town, as you guys can see, quite ornate. Now close to the Gate of Dawn is this, which is the Orthodox Church of the Holy Spirit and Monastery. Now in the late 16th century a wooden church was built on this place, but because of a fire it had to be rebuilt in the late 18th century according to the project of the famous architect Johann Christoph Globitz. And I'm not sure if it's open or not, but yeah. Over there is the Orthodox Church in its full glory. Based on my observations, I do believe this building is more ornate than the Theotokos Church. If you want to know the spelling of Gediminas, here is the spelling, and over here I do presume is one of the most beautiful parts of the city of Vilnius over here, as you guys can see, with all of the intricate details and stuff. Yes, and over there is the Gate of Dawn, so why not? I'll just see you guys at the town hall. Over there is just an obscure gate, but in the Baroque style with all the ostentatious features. And why not? I'm just going to go to the town hall, which is a 2-minute walk away. But before stopping by the old town hall, due to the fact I'm quite hungry, therefore I'm just going to stop by the Etno over here. And over here it is, my chicken Kiev. Now Kiev is named after the city of Kiev, which is the capital and largest city of Ukraine. As you guys know, you also have fries as well as some salad. So one I'm just gonna eat. And fun fact, I paid 11 euros. I just finished eating, and the very last place I'm gonna go is the town hall over there. Unfortunately, I'm getting a bit sick now, so I do have to return to the hotel. Oh, I'm now shivering, sorry. But let me describe to you guys some fun facts about the town hall. As you guys can see, the Vilnius town hall is a historical town hall in the town hall square in the old town. It is built in a neoclassical style and was constructed between 1785 and 1799. The Vilnius town hall was first mentioned in 1432 and was built in the Gothic style, but was reconstructed many times, and Laurinus Gučevičius then redesigned the building, and hence we have a new classical town hall. Its Gothic cellars have been preserved and it remained unchanged. Fun facts, George W. Bush and Queen Elizabeth visited the town hall. But as you guys can see, the old town is quite fancy, and let's say goodbye to Vilnius because I'm getting a bit sick now, but this is one of the easternmost Baroque towns in all of Europe. Over here is the full look of the old town. After a while, I just returned home, and here's some attractions I've not visited, including Halley's Turgis, that OK 2.0, the Museum of Occupation and Freedom Fights, Vilnius Park, as well as Vilnius TV Tower. Unfortunately, getting a bit sick, but luckily it's close to the end of the trip. But I do believe this trip is quite good, except the fact there are some financial issues related to the key, as well as the luggage, and the fact we're sick, sort of. But here is the age-old question. Is Vilnius underrated? For me, I think yes. There are not many visitors, and plus many people don't really know Vilnius at all. They get overlooked in favor of Paris and London. But in reality, like you would probably get a reasonable sized hotel for around 50 to 75 euros, like this, for example, per night. And also, like for food, I would say a modest meal costs between 5 to 10 euros, and a reasonable Lithuanian dish costs around 10 to 15 euros. And plus attractions, I would say maybe about 5 to 15 euros for attractions. And public transportation is quite reasonably priced as well. And also, the city is quite beautiful, especially compared with Warsaw and Berlin. So I do believe that Vilnius is underrated. So thank you guys for watching. Please give a big thumbs up, subscribe for more videos. I'm going to see you guys soon.